I have the honor of welcoming Olivia Gambelin, a world-renowned expert in AI ethics and product innovation, and Anna Metsäranta, Head of Sustainable AI at Solita, but also a member of the Nordic Ethical AI Expert Group. Welcome both, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Paulina.
Thank you.
All right, so I am really excited to be sharing the stage here with Anna today. We're going to be talking about how to evolve with AI. And the reason I'm so excited to share the stage with Anna is we get to bring you two perspectives here. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the US perspective, and Anna's going to be covering the European perspective. Now, when we're talking about evolving with AI, we're in a bit of an unprecedented time, and I know that we hate that word unprecedented. It's been overused, but truly, with the onset of generative AI and this whole hype around it, we've never actually been at a point in time where every single aspect of business is impacted. We're not only talking about industries, we're talking about business functions. So everywhere you look, you see AI. But even though AI is covering all of these different facets, the approaches are not necessarily the same. So to kick that off, I'm going to start by giving you a quick coverage of the US North American approach to AI as we're evolving with this technology. Now, when it comes to the US, we have a long history of move fast and break things. So it should come as no surprise that that is still very much the sentiment that is happening in that market. Now, what that's being driven by, though, is this fear of being left behind. There's this fear within the States of, if I don't adopt AI today, I'm irrelevant tomorrow. If my business is not becoming AI-enabled tomorrow, then we're gone in the next year. So it's creating this growing fear of, I'm falling behind, I need to move faster, I need to adopt now. So keep that in mind. When it comes to the US, it's that fear of falling behind. But I'm interested, Anna, from the European perspective, does that ring true, or are we looking at something a little bit different here?
Well, I think we share the fear, definitely, but I think we are looking at it very differently. You talk about fear of being left behind. If we don't act really quickly, I think maybe in Europe we have more of a fear of getting it wrong if we move too fast. So we don't want to get it wrong. I want to draw this back to European values. We have a really strong value base. We place a high importance on things like privacy and security, social welfare, equality, human rights. So historically, to protect these human rights and values, we have a long history of regulation. Everybody will have heard of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. We all know that it has had a massive impact on digital solutions development, but it has also had a massive impact on how we view privacy and how we view people's right to a private life. Europe set the standard, and US has listened as well, so we have had a bit of a global impact from that. So European regulation, recently we have so much more of it. We had the Data Act, the Digital Services Act, we have, of course, the AI Act, we have cybersecurity regulations, we have product safety regulations and all the local interpretations of these. So it's a very complex jungle of laws and regulations that we have to deal with. So that's one aspect here. Also, I think we have a critical approach to AI because we are very aware of the harms. We hear all the examples from outside of Europe, all the violations of privacy or the perpetuation or amplification of injustices. We have got it wrong in Europe too, to the point of a government having to resign. So we know how it feels when we get it wrong. We don't want to do that. And I think looking at it from this perspective, it's quite understandable that we have risk-averse IT departments and legal departments. We have a lot of policies and processes that are slowing down AI adoption. One other interesting thing we noticed 2 years ago, we did a study on the state of sustainable AI. And some organizations, particularly in high-risk industries, are super cautious. If they are not really clear on what they can do with AI, they might rather just sit back and wait and do nothing and maybe wait for a competitor to screw up first. So in a way, I almost want to say that companies are putting the ethics of AI above competitive advantage in Europe. I don't know if any organization would say it quite like that, but that's how I want to interpret that. So inertia, I think we have inertia in Europe. We don't want to run headfirst into the unknown.
Yeah, so from the US side, we have that fear of getting left behind. And from the European side, it's that fear of getting it wrong, as you're probably watching a lot in the US going wrong to start.
Yes.
But I want to look further into that piece you were saying about inertia. From the European perspective, what can we do to overcome that inertia and actually get moving in terms of the adoption and development of artificial intelligence, with the goal of actually being able to gain leadership on a global scale?
That's where I get really excited, because I mentioned things like the values and the regulation. And if the mindset has been that these are slowing us down, I think we need to swap the mindset. I think we need to embrace the fact that we have a strong culture of values and ethics. We should look to regulation as a guideline for responsible innovation. We should embrace it. That's how I feel very strongly. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Europe has not been the technical leader of the AI transformation, of the massive disruption. We are at mercy of global tech, and sometimes we are quite aware that it's not fully aligned with our values, but we can't just close our eyes from the global tech. We want to use it, we want to move forward with it, but I think the answer here is responsible AI. It's taking control of the impacts of the AI and making sure that it is aligned with our values. So we must use the technology, let's do it in a responsible way. I want to say a few words about the Nordics here, Nordics being my home market. Two things about the Nordics. We, of course, subscribe fully to the European values, and we have a specific priority or importance on social welfare, not just individual rights, but collective well-being and environmental sustainability. So that's one thing. Another thing is the role of governments. We look to governments to provide services to us, provide critical things to us, but also to regulate the economy. So recently I had the privilege of working as part of this Nordic Ethical AI Expert Group. It was so fantastic to work with all these experts. And we put together policy recommendations for Nordic ethical AI that were presented to the Nordic Council of Ministers. We have two goals here. We want to make sure that the Nordic values are upheld and that we join forces in the Nordics to make a difference. We want to take a global position as leading the ethical use of AI, so heavily going in for the responsible AI as a competitive advantage. So how does that sound to you from the North American move fast, break things mentality?
Well, I love the part about starting with inertia here, and I'll have a little bit of a nerd moment here. Inertia isn't just the fact that you go standing still to needing to move and overcoming that standstill. Inertia really is the fact of changing speed from your current state. So on the European side, we may have that inertia of trying to get moving. From the US side, we have that inertia of not necessarily slow down, but let's stop, having all of these snowballs roll down the hill in multiple directions all at once. Which one of the pitfalls of having this fear of getting left behind results in, hey, let's do everything everywhere all at once. Let's throw use cases at all of our employees. Let's see what happens. Let's cross our fingers that something sticks. What that creates is this kind of cacophony of different use cases, of different directions of how we're using AI, where it's going into place, what are we going to do with it? And what that results in is a whole lot of wasted time and resources. Now, the thing with AI is it's not a magic wand. You can't plug and play. You can't say, hey, this is going to go great no matter where we put it in. You actually need guidelines, best practices, and direction for what you're doing. Without direction, then you're going to end up with potentially use cases or potentially products that misalign with your company and your both company mission and objectives. And without best practices, you're spinning your wheels. You're wasting time. You're going failed project after failed project after failed project. So on the US side, even though there's this fear of being left behind that is driving mass amounts of technical adoption and development, that creates this pitfall when it's not done well. That creates this pitfall of wasted time and resources. Now, the fun part is the solution to this is also actually responsible AI. Responsible AI is the practice of being able to align your use, adoption, development of artificial intelligence with your company mission, with your company objectives, and with society as a whole. So instead of going in, crossing your fingers, saying, well, let's hope something works, you're going in saying, we know the direction that we want to head in. And also, responsible AI is best practice when it comes to developing AI. So it's no longer developing in the Wild West. I know the US, we love our Wild West, but we're not developing there anymore. We're not necessarily going in without any clear idea of what works well. We know what works well. That's called responsible AI. Those are responsible AI practices. So with the US, that solution to getting through the inertia of moving too fast in too many directions and breaking way too many things, and that fear of falling behind, creating these pitfalls of wasted time and resources, that solution still at the end of the day is responsible AI.
And actually we face some of those same challenges in Europe too, like how do we build AI that is actually solving a real problem? Responsible AI is an answer to that too. I love this, that we start from almost opposing angles of causes of inertia, but we end up in the same thing. We end up with responsible AI. So this is a topic that there's so much talk about, but there's not an awful lot of awareness yet of what is it actually? What is responsible AI? Shall we talk about that?
Absolutely. And I've been warned, because I always start this out and I say, it's really easy. And I realize that from my position, when I've been in this field for so long and I've seen all these practices build up, I started in this field where I would say I'm an AI ethicist and people would go, are you okay? Like, what is that? And say, no, it's a profession, don't worry. To now, when responsible AI is on the tip of everyone's tongue, there are clear set practices, there are clear directions to success. The first step with all of this is to get a strategy in place. And what I mean is not, hey, we've got our AI strategy, and then, by the way, we should probably do responsible AI, let's add that in there. That is actually counterproductive to responsible AI as a whole. So when I'm talking about getting a strategy in place, I'm talking about let's make an AI strategy on responsible foundations. That needs to be the core aspect, because responsible AI is not an afterthought. If it's an afterthought, you are having to duplicate all of your efforts over and over again to go back and fix things that you could have just done right from the start. Now, the other part with responsible AI and having that strategy, an AI strategy with responsible foundations, it can feel like, oh my goodness, there's so many different things I have to focus on all at once. I do this practice where I'll sit down with a team and I'll say, okay, tell me what it means to do responsible AI. And I write it all up on the board. And I have run out of space on whiteboards before because people are saying, hey, we need to measure fairness. We need to follow this framework. If they're in the US, they're talking about the NIST framework. If they're in Europe, they're talking about the EU AI Act. We need risk categories, on and on and on and on and on. And so you look at this and you go, oh my goodness, what do we do here? How do we actually manage all of this? It's too much to take on all at once. There's an easy way to sort through this. So I actually want to introduce a tool real quick, which is super easy to be, I should stop saying easy. It is very easy to use. It takes that complexity and makes it simple. So you can actually go to a website called www.thevaluescanvas.com. And there is, on that website, you have a holistic management tool for responsible AI. This tool, this one that I've designed over years and years of doing this kind of work, this tool actually focuses on how to make sense of that entire cacophony of different practices and needs and drivers. What it does is it sorts it into, think of a map, a matrix. So you can see and pinpoint exactly where do we start, what are we missing, and what do we do next when it comes to the resources in responsible AI. Now, I will give you a little bit of a spoiler on what that canvas actually looks like. It's divided into 3 pillars. We've got people, process, and technology. The people pillar, we're looking at, quite literally, who is building or adopting your AI. The process pillar, we're looking at how are they building or adopting AI. And then the technology is the what. What are they building or adopting? So the who, how, and what. The most important pillar here, though, is not the what. And that's the pitfall that companies fall into. They immediately go to AI and they say, okay, we got to make sure that this is doing well. When really the root and base of both your success and your downfall sits in that people pillar. You need to make sure your people are on solid foundation, which is where I want to hand back over to you to talk a little bit more about why it is that people pillar. Why are people actually the foundation of AI?
I really love that you talk about people like that. I totally subscribe to that. People are at the very center of AI initiatives succeeding or failing. I think that's because it's often overlooked that all AI systems are socio-technical by nature. So it's like, I think of it like a dance between humans and technology. It's an interplay, it's a dialogue. Humans are at the core of all AI. We cannot overlook that. Humans are complex. That's why I think people start with technology, because it's so much simpler than people. People are super complex. They have fears and doubts and motivations and subconscious thoughts. They might, in this massive hype of Gen AI, they might fear for loss of jobs. They might fear for the livelihood that they need to support their families. They might feel that they're becoming obsolete if they're not able to adopt every single flashy Gen AI tool that's out there. So these are real fears. And even though someone might be of the opinion that it's not rational, you shouldn't worry about that, that's not how people work. People need to be met where they are. So organizations need to work towards understanding the people and understanding how to help people do their jobs and have an easier life. So that's where organizations need to put some effort into. One approach here, which I will admit is a bit of a sort of a rational approach to this problem. It's not the only thing organizations need to do, but one approach is AI literacy. It's giving people a chance to learn about this technology that is possibly causing fears or doubts or hesitation or overexcitement or whatever it is. So give them a chance to learn, maybe give them a chance to get their hands dirty with some of the tools. Familiarity should alleviate some of the fears that are not really worth spending time on. And also, as you get people more excited about the realistic possibilities of these technologies, they are not what they're hyped up to be, but they are useful. So when you get people understanding how and when and where they're useful, you have a workforce supporting this AI enablement. So you don't have to do it top down. You can do it from all levels of the organization if people have the literacies that they need to work efficiently with AI. So AI literacy, invest in that. That's super important. Another thing about people is we are ethical agents. We want to do the right thing. We want to work with technology in a responsible way. We just don't always know how, because AI is so complex and we all know that it has risks and harmful impacts. How are we supposed to work with this technology then? Organizations need to help. Again, they need to go where the people are. I want to talk about two things here. I want to talk about principles and practices of responsible use of AI. Principles already a lot of companies have. So they're value-driven fundamentals for how we want to work with this technology. Things like our AI systems will not perpetuate societal biases. That could be a principle that people can subscribe to. Like, yes, I agree with that. That's how I want us to work with AI. But how? If you don't give the practices to answer the question of how, and I think your canvas will support this thinking, you need to give the practices. So if we say we don't want to perpetuate societal biases, then we must have the processes and the accountabilities and the tools for example, critically analyzing the output from our AI systems to detect those harmful biases. And then we need the processes to mitigate the harms that we have caused. So this all goes back to being a responsible use of the technology. We want to use it, but we want to take control of the impacts that we are creating. So a lot of things here have been said. We could talk about AI governance, where we put people into positions of who gets to make decisions, who has accountability. We have things like risk management, which again is so much about people's diverse expertise. We need to invite that expertise around the table when we do risk assessments. There, like you said, there's a lot. So is there a way, can you summarize this somehow for our listeners?
Absolutely. I'll do my best because, of course, there's a lot going on here. But if you're listening in, your 3 takeaways that you can sit here and go, okay, if tomorrow I start looking into these 3 pieces, great, you're doing a great job. Start with 1, AI literacy. You touched on that brilliantly there, Anna. Getting your people trained, understanding what AI is. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be reducing fear of AI taking their jobs, but also fear of, well, I don't really know this technology. How am I supposed to manage it? I've seen it time and time again, especially on an executive level, that fear of, I'm supposed to be leading something that I don't know and I don't understand. So we're not just talking about lower level literacies in terms of, say, your engineering teams or your data science teams. No, we're talking about full company all the way up to the executives, making sure that everyone has the same terminology, that they're working from the same knowledge points. So AI literacy, we got that one. Second one, I think you could probably guess this, how much I stressed it, but get a strategy in place. And when I say strategy, I'm not talking about only a responsible AI strategy. I'm talking about an AI strategy on responsible foundations. Do this right from the start. That's what's really going to be a game changer. So AI literacy, AI strategy, and the very last one, this one's going to be kind of fun when we're talking about the world of AI, think human. AI is a story about humans. That's it, at the very root. No matter what we're looking at, if you dig far enough underneath the story and the complexity of AI, you're gonna reach the humans eventually. So, looking at that summary, AI literacy, AI strategy, think human when you think AI. To pull this all back together, we started by talking about the US and the European perspectives. Now I want to tie it up with a nice little ribbon and touch back again on that US perspective, handing it over to you for the European, but looking at that US perspective when we're talking about that fear of falling behind, where we want to continue to evolve with AI, our goal is to become AI enabled, then responsible AI creates that direction, guidelines, and best practices to enable us to move fast, break a whole lot less things, and do so in the right direction where we're not wasting time down dead ends and resources on failed projects. And I'm going to hand it over to you for the final words here.
Thank you. For my European peers, I would say, let's get moving. Let's adopt this culture and mindset of responsible use of AI. It will lower our business and reputation risk. It will make for much happier customers and employees, and it's actually an enabler for ethical innovation with AI. We want to do that. So responsible AI is not just the right thing to do, it's a sensible way to run a business.
Absolutely.
So much, Anna and Olivia, for that wonderful presentation. And I have some questions for you, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. I actually have plenty, so let's go.
We're ready. Go.
All right.
So I love the fact that you talked about involving people, involving everyone in the organization, and that AI literacy is an important part of that. And this is a question that I get a lot. Like, how do you make people feel like they're part of this and not just, something that they've been handed, like we're doing AI now, so get going. What other recommendations do you have apart from the knowledge and the literacy?
Well, I actually think, sorry.
Go ahead. I'll pick
Yeah.
up after you. Go ahead.
I think our work is quite similar, so we'll have similar viewpoints on this, but I don't like to think of education as something that's very separate from what we then do in the real world. So the way we educate people on AI is always coupled with the context of where are you going to be using it. So already running these training courses or academies or whatever you have, even for the senior leadership level, which is what we do, we want to get them to apply the knowledge immediately into their own area. So we get them involved in the use case ideation, and we get them to start seeing the real possibilities and the limitations and the risks in their own context. There are amazing free resources online. They are a good place to start, but that's not enough. So the way you get people involved is to invite them around the table to talk about use cases. How are we going to deal with this technology in this organization? What problems are we going to be solving? How are we going to do this together? And then, of course, people are at the center of everything, so you should never sort of outsource the building of AI solutions and push the users or the people impacted by the solution aside. They need to be invited to the same table to do it together. That's my view. What would you say?
Anything you want to add?
Well, you already guessed it. We were going to have very similar opinions here. And I'll just really summarize what you were saying, Anna, into focusing on co-design. Yeah. It's not, hey, we're coming in and here's the AI, go use it. It's what do you need? What's going to support your work? What's going to help you do a better job? Yeah. That's both with AI adoption and use, but also with responsible practices. The last thing you want is someone coming in and saying, you're doing it all wrong. No, what you want to start with is ask, hey, where are their sticking points? Where can we expedite this process? Where can we actually have better efficiencies here? The people that are actually, let's say, rolling their sleeves up and working with the AI tools or on the AI solutions, they're going to know best. So that co-design element is so incredibly important for so many different reasons. But hopefully that gives a nice little one-word summary of what you were emphasizing so beautifully there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about both sort of responsible AI and the ethics of AI and writing an AI policy and finding the right way for what you want AI in your organization to do. How important is it to also define what you don't want AI to be able to do and not include because it could take the wrong paths?
I'll start on this one.
Yep.
Okay. So understanding what you don't want AI to do is just as important as understanding what you do want it to do. Creating those clear lines of, we don't want it here, we don't want, for example, to use AI in, I don't know, content creation. That's a popular one right now because it doesn't further our business objectives. Great. That is just as powerful a statement and strategy as saying, we're going to use content creation, we're going to use AI there to help speed up some of our processes. So being able to understand where's the best place and really being able to put that red line down saying, we're not going to touch that right now. Not even from an ethical point of view, that's also important, understanding where those lines are. That helps give your team confidence instead of, and I've seen this happen many times, I've gone into, say, an engineering or a data science team where they're sitting there going, I'm a little afraid that I'm doing something wrong and I really don't know where it is. And I have deadlines to meet, so I'm just going to keep going and crossing my fingers that I'm not doing anything wrong. That creates fear and hesitancy in your teams. So giving them the clear lines of here are your ethical guidelines, great, that's going to help them move forward. But then a company as a whole targeting your actual AI objectives by saying, we're not going to do this, or, we'll do this in 2 years' time, or we'll address this as we go forward. Yeah. That's just as powerful.
You covered beautifully the level of strategy and the policies principles, definitely not separate. It is a part of those, it's built in. And it also goes to the level of individual AI solutions. So all the guidelines that we have for responsible use of this technology goes back to, for individual solutions, we have to define and document the intended purposes of the system, the intended benefit and the intended users. And we also have to document the not allowed use cases. What is this technology not supposed to be used for? Who is not supposed to use it? So we need to monitor for that as well. So it goes to all levels. We don't just think about what do we do, we also always think about what do we not do, and we draw the boundaries.
Great answers. So one last question. A question that I get often too is prioritizing. Like, how do you actually make time for innovation next to sort of just running your business? And so I guess it applies to this as well. Like, how do you actually make time for creating an AI policy and thinking about all these aspects and preparing for the future when you have to run your business as well? It's a question.
I'm going to give a provocative statement here and say, are you running a future-proof business? Do you want your business to survive? Do you want it to adapt to the changing needs of the world? Do you want to adopt this technology? It is an investment, but is it one that you can overlook?
Yeah, so it's not really a question that is,
you just have to do it.
Exactly. It's an imperative.
Yeah.
And I would say as well, actually, to add in a little pitch around ethics here, because this is something that often people say, oh, we can't do ethics. We've got to focus on innovation. We have to focus on adoption. The practice of responsible AI is a practice of innovation. Yeah. It enables better, stronger quality of innovation, better creativity. What it's doing is it is creating that direction that streamlines your creativity, that streamlines the innovation that you're trying to encourage already. So instead of saying, oh, it's a separate thing, or oh, it's going to slow us down, when you're thinking about your values, your company mission, when you're asking, how do we protect this? Also flip it in the reverse and say, how do we actually align with our values? How do we further promote these values in a way that promotes that business mission, objectives all around?
And if I can just add one more thing to that, because I've seen this in practice, when we add ethical deliberation at the right points of the life cycle, so at the very start when we just have an idea and we have no lines of code, ethical deliberation at that point can massively save you resources wasted on a use case that never should have been done in the first place. So you have an opportunity there to pivot your idea, to take your resources where they'll make the kind of impact you want to make. So definitely aligned on this. It's not a layer you add on top later. It has to be woven into everything. It is sensible business. That's what you should do.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anna and Olivia. We have a fully packed program that we had to attend to, but thank you so much for your important insights.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.